Hey guys. So today's topic we're gonna talk about is learning how to be easier on yourself. What I mean by that is, so recently I had discovered that, well, I guess not discovered, but I guess I exposed myself more to the fact that I'm a little too harsh on myself, and people in my life had to explain that to me. And I guess it's hard to really understand that you aren't as easy on yourself as you think you are. I think a lot of us think we're not as good as we think we are, or we don't exceed where we think we will. But when you start to compare yourself and your accomplishments to somebody else's, the envy and the jealousy adds up, and it takes a hit on your pride, which causes you to lash out at everyone around you. And I've been guilty of that many times. I still am. I get jealous a lot, but I have to remind myself that I'm only 19 and I'm young. I got my whole life ahead of me. Like, I see all these rappers and these artists and these streamers, you know, they have all these fancy cars and they're just living their best life. And I'm jealous of that. But, you know, I think, I think it's easy for us to compare. I think it's easy for us to get caught up in the comparisons and not so much really focusing on yourself, because the race isn't with everybody else around you. The race should be you against you every single day. So what I mean by that is yesterday's you, whether you cured cancer or you got a Nobel Peace Prize, or you know, or you just got out of the shower like 1 minute quicker. You should always be striving to beat who you were yesterday. At the end of my life, I want to say I succeeded in dying the best version of myself that I could have. It's like I could go my whole career and retire by the time I'm like 50, but if I don't do anything after, then I'd have just lived a life of just working and not exceeding my expectations or even creating expectations. And that's the difficulty about expectations, is that we think we have this preconceived notion of what we're going to be when we're older, or like what we want to be now. And when we don't meet those, or when we think we don't like meet those, it's the fact that we don't understand what we were doing instead. And I think a lot of the times that, like, whenever I fall short and then I start comparing myself, I think, wow, maybe they just had it easier. But it's never the fact that somebody else had it easier than you, it's the fact that they worked harder than you for it. Whatever it may be. And that's fine that people want to work harder than you, but you can't be okay with that. You can't be like, oh, Justin over here is so much smarter than me. He's a better athlete than me. But I'm close to him. I have decent enough grades. I'm as fast as him. I'm as smart as him. But does that show? Do you know if you're as fast as that person? And it shouldn't be a thing to compare yourself. You shouldn't have to struggle every day with comparisons. And you could be too skinny, or you could be too fat. But I just think a lot of people sometimes are too hard on themselves, and me included. I do think a lot of the times that I'm not where I should be, and I have some friends that always think like, oh, I'm not where I want to be, or like, oh, well, this person has this, and I just have this. Well, think of it this way. I mean, imagine you and your brother get, s'mores, and your brother gets two and you get one. Well, he is gonna have more calories and sugars and all that unhealthy stuff, but you're gonna be over here only having one. So in smaller ways, you're winning. There's always small wins in every bad situation. And whether you think it's a good situation or a bad situation, there's always small wins. Your whole day could be bad, but the smallest win could be you going to sleep and seeing the next day. And it's as easy as that. But people don't want to stop and smell the roses. And I know that's an old saying. I know that many people might not use that anymore, but they're genuinely not wrong when they talk about that. And I really do feel like a lot of us don't take the time to appreciate ourselves and value ourselves. We always put other people's motivation and goals over our own. And it's hard. It's hard to see that until someone says it, you know? You never understand what you're doing until someone else explains to you what you're doing to yourself. And that's hard to see, you know? I struggle with that a lot, you know? I have to tell my folks all the time, like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Like, have you guys noticed this as well? Oh yeah, we have actually. We didn't know if you were gonna say anything or if you just like knew it was happening. But that's the thing though, is you kind of have to always be like aware or even hyper aware of just like your reactions, your emotions, and just who you are, because you know who you are as a person could change any other day, like just like that. And you know, I could be a completely different person next week, and I hope I am, you know. I hope I change for the better. I hope I always strive towards, you know, personal success and personal change. But you know, sometimes it's hard to do that, you know, just like it's hard to get out of bed in the morning. Sometimes it's hard for some people to take a shower or go to work and then they get fired. But my main message is that if you love yourself enough and if you love others enough, you'll be willing to change for yourself. And once you change internally, your whole environment will change around you. Everyone will know and see the difference. So I love you guys. I'll see you in the next video, and deuces.